Hello everyone and welcome to Helix Plays Games. My name is Richie and this is CloudQuest, a cloud gaming show where we take a deep dive into one particular topic. This week we're talking about our game of the year for 2022, and joining me in this quest is none other than Mr. Chris.
Hello everyone, ready to round up the year.
And making his first ever appearance on CloudQuest, Mr. Rob.
Hello, I am also here and ready to round up the year.
He is indeed, because it's a game of the year one, and so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about what's our individual games of the year, our favourite games that we've played this year, and kind of nominate a game as a channel what we think's the best. But before we get into it, make sure if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon for notifications when all of our great shows go live, such as XPass, where we break down all the gaming news brought to you by Microsoft in the green sound of gaming every single Monday on podcast services and on YouTube. Every single Tuesday, we follow XPass up with Talking the PS, where we'll break down all the PlayStation news in the blue side of gaming, also on podcast services and YouTube. Our first looks, our live streams, and whatever else we want to bring you. And coming up next year, the Clickercast.
Go on, you got this.
The Clickercast, where we're going to be talking about HBO's. Is it HBO?
HBO America,
HBO's,
they're doing it, then Sky over here, and probably everything else distributed across Europe.
In my mind I had it like as Now TV. That's where I'm going to be watching it, but in America it's produced by HBO. It's the Last of Us TV show, so every week we're going to be rounding up each individual episode as a kind of spoiler cast for every single episode, and we're going to be doing that live. So yeah, keep an eye on our socials for more news when that comes live. Game of the year 2023. Where would you like to start? Yes, because basically we're just going to have this episode to kind of gush over all the great games we've played for this year.
Yeah, I always think it's a good thing to start, in case there's anyone new to the channel. We haven't played every game this year.
No.
Like, we're not professionals. We don't have infinite funds to buy every game. There's games that just aren't to our taste, so apologies in advance if we do not talk about your favourite game of the year. Like, that's yours. That's why it's yours. This is our three. I haven't played Elden Ring. I apologise.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, straight at the top of the show, Rob, have you played Elden Ring?
Yes, I have. So I'll
have you actually played Elden Ring?
Oh, yeah, wow. Yeah.
I was just
not
going
to completion, but I've dabbled.
Where I was going with that was, we're not going to be talking about Elden Ring, but, well, we are going to be talking about Elden Ring, I suppose.
I'll advocate for it in the context of...
So, should we start with Elden Ring then, Rob?
Yeah, I guess, like, where do you want to start? Like, for the fans of those kind of soul kind of type games, it's perhaps the pinnacle of that genre, really. And it's a culmination. I think the thing that kind of makes it as good as it is the fact that it's built on a very similar kind of mechanic system, which has been kind of iterated on for kind of a long time now. And those kind of Souls games have always had a quite vocal kind of following on the internet, but in terms of reality, like, they haven't actually been as big as you'd expect them to be from their kind of online profile. And I think that kind of
cult classics rather than like massive
mainstream.
Yeah, but I think Elden Ring was the one that kind of allowed it to break into a much bigger audience, and for that reason, like, that's the argument for that game of the year, and I think that's kind of the basis of a winning kind of Game Awards official game of the year. It's not necessarily to everyone's taste still. Like, again, I don't particularly like those types of games, but I got enough into this game to actually appreciate it to an extent.
They've been on the precipice of breaking through into the mainstream properly, like what we think they've done with Elden Ring. I think like Dark Souls 3, for example, felt close to breaking through. Bloodborne, definitely being a PlayStation like exclusive, kind of like was well revered. What's the it's not Ghost of Tsushima, it's the other one. Sekiro again, that's another one that kind of we felt close to breaking into that mainstream. I wonder if because George R. R. Martin's been attached to it is the thing that kind of give it that just little bit of juice to get to break through.
So I think and this is like an important, bigger conversation really, but for to win Game of the Year and to kind of like get that massive appeal, there's an element where it has to be streamable for content creators. Mm-hmm. And I think Elden Ring, more so than any other game kind of that would have been in the running for this like award, was that game. It was much more kind of streamable for like big Twitch creators. There was more kind of clippable moments if you want, and kind of interesting kind of things to showcase skill, like pure skill, which I think translates well to get a bigger audience.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. The nature of game streaming, where our whole thing is we tend to play off each other when in a game, but if you're a solo streamer, you need to play off the game, so you need things to react against, and like spending like an hour grinding out that hard boss and like the elation you must get from that on stream and sharing that with the community. I think that does kind of probably elevate the game a bit.
Yeah, it really has just been a perfect storm for Elden Ring, like you said, Rob, between like the marketing and then Jeff Keighley championing it at like all of his events. Like, let's face it, Jeff Keighley's took the championship for 2022 for like the best events. Like he absolutely wiped out E3 by them not having a presence at all this year. He's just, through COVID and lockdown, he's took ownership of basically every big digital event in the games industry, and then he rounds it out with the Game Awards, and he's been showcasing Elden Ring for like 3 years now at all of these tentpole events. And like you said, Richie, then throw in the George R. R. Martin stuff. House of Dragons been big again this year. Game of Thrones, it was still huge leading into this. And then you've got like Game of the Year winning director and producers from Sekiro in the form of FromSoft. And and again, the thing that made it default was going to always win. It came out the same time as a Horizon game, so whoever Horizon goes up again, by default wipes the floor with them, and no one talks about Horizon, bless them. And here we are. But I think just as a little fact as well, top selling video games year to date through the NPD numbers, which is it's the US chart, I think, rather than just global, but obviously biggest market and all that. Call of Duty Modern Warfare at number 1, number 2 Elden Ring. So second top selling video game year to date in 2022 says a lot about how well this game's been received.
Call of Duty, which we've covered a few times in XPass, where it's like somehow Call of Duty seems, although gamers like ourselves sometimes get surprised by the news, Call of Duty it's breaking its own records this year. So being second to like Call of Duty, everyone knows it's one of the best selling games of all time. Being second to the highest selling game in that franchise is not a bad place to be. Let's be fair.
No, not at all. To round out the rest of the list, just for context, I guess, Madden NFL 23 at number 3. Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga in at number 4.
Is that including Game Pass though?
Interesting.
It's sales, retail, and digital, so I don't think it counts. I don't think Game Pass numbers are readily available to the NPD group. Number 5, God of War Ragnarok, which is again very well in number 5 considering it only came out last month.
Yeah.
So today again, Elden Ring did have a start in the back end of March. In at 5 and 6, you've got Pokemon Arceus, and then followed by Scarlet and Violet, respectively, and then Horizon Forbidden West in there, followed by FIFA 23, and then rounding out the top 10 with MLB The Show. So again, sports games do very, very well in this time of world, but between the rest of the rest of it's basically Sony, Nintendo.
I'm surprised FIFA are that low. Oh no, it's American charts, isn't it? So I guess never mind.
I think Europe it would be like Call of Duty top, FIFA is like the European one.
FIFA is probably the biggest selling sports game in the world, but it's probably not the biggest in America.
Yeah,
Madden
at number 3 kind of shows you the difference in sports.
Yeah,
interests.
I guess I'd say probably scrapes into the top 3 in America, because you've got things like NHL, you've got Madden, you've got basketball stuff. Like, there's a lot more different sports where football is very much the global biggest sport.
But we're not here to review sports.
We're not. To be perfectly honest, since we're mentioned FIFA, I haven't played that much of FIFA 23 compared to how much I played of FIFA 22, even though it's been the World Cup.
You've been distracted by real world football. Yeah,
you think that like the World Cup would get be one of them things like the fire. Oh, I fancy playing a bit of FIFA, but I just haven't had that.
But it's also Christmas, and it's the World Cup at Christmas. Just doesn't feel like the right time.
Yeah.
To kind of get you in that mindset. Like, my mind is on Christmas and celebrating New Year, seeing friends and family, not playing football or watching football virtually or real well, because now it's done now anyway. So,
yeah. I mean, should we talk about another game? And you've already mentioned this game, Chris. Like when you talk about Elden Ring, as like when it comes to whoever goes up against this game is getting the Game of the Year award. Horizon.
Yeah, Forbidden West. Got the Platinum Trophy back in probably like April, May time at the start of the year. It was a really good, just kind of... It felt like me, that's when PlayStation's year kick-started with the launch of Horizon. Luckily for them, everyone thought it's not going up against Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild this time round, so it has a better chance. And then in swooped Elden Ring and was like, hold my beer, we've got this for you. And yeah, just kind of... They had a muted launch, once again, down to just unfortunate timing. In terms of the game itself, I didn't enjoy it as much as the first one. I think Horizon Zero Dawn has a more condensed story, and I feel like it just flows better. But saying that, I did have a fantastic time with Forbidden West. New areas to explore, new characters to meet, companions and stuff, and more importantly, more creatures and robotic dinosaurs and stuff to hunt down and craft parts for. Absolutely beautiful, very, very gorgeous realised world. And I think, again, when we look and reflect upon Guerrilla, like, these guys used to make Killzone and shooters, and like the fact that they've now put two absolute stellar, gorgeous third-person action-adventure games is a credit to themselves. But yeah, unfortunately lost out to all the awards, but like I said, if you're going to get pipped by something, Elden Ring seemingly is the one to get beat by.
I think in March you could have called Horizon wasn't getting any awards because of Elden Ring. And for me, with Horizon, I kind of felt like... I mean... The biggest criticism I can give for Horizon Forbidden West is it's just more Horizon. But when you dig into what that kind of means, like the first game landed so much in such a bigger way because it was new, it was novel. Like going up, like discovering that world and exploring, because you had no idea what is like this kind of primitive tribal society that happens after the fall of man. Like it's post-apocalyptic, and how the weapons are kind of this weird combination of traditional like bows and arrows, but also modern like futuristic tech and the robot dinosaurs and stuff, and then discovering who Aloy is as a character. I think in Zero Dawn was amazing. In Forbidden West, like I don't think Aloy's character changes that much from the opening scenes to the closing scenes.
Yeah, there's not as
you
much
just
of
play
a
the story as Aloy.
arc.
There's not that much in the way of character development. You're just playing this established character through another story.
Yeah.
And the impact of discovering the world is reduced because we've already been here before. It's a different part of the world. There's different robot dinosaurs, but
Yeah,
we
and if
know
you go back
more.
to traditional storytelling, you expect the character by the second act or the second movie or the second book or whatever to develop and grow and stuff. And I think as the protagonist who you solely play as, even though you have lots of companions and such, it is, again, I'm now comparing it very closely to God of War Ragnarok, which is doing the same thing. It's a sequel, in essence, to the 2018 version. Same protagonist, same group of companions, give or take an extra few, in the same world. In the way they use those kind of skills and abilities and storytelling differently. I think now we've had both of them out and we've finished them both. You can compare them. You can kind of see where Horizon just didn't really elevate Aloy to any new heights at all, which, even though the world's gorgeous, it's still a single-player game. So you're relying on her just doing something and being different, and I don't think you got that in this game. So yeah, more of the same, which isn't a bad thing.
It's a good game. It's a very, very good game. I'd even say it's a great game, but it does feel that like tier below God of War and Elden Ring. Like in terms of like the quality, it doesn't have that little bit of magic that God of War and Elden Ring had. There's the reason why the Game Awards was God of War versus Elden Ring, effectively.
Would you, just to throw it back to you, Rob, with Elden Ring, would you recommend checking it out if you're not a Souls player? Because I know a few people say like it's a bit different because it's open world now, and if you die loads, you can actually go away and grind a little bit, then come back. It's on sale right now for $34.99. I've been distracted by The Witcher 3, so I'm kind of I'm not really drawn towards it, but I'm thinking at that price point, it's someone who does not like dying loads, and I get very frustrated very quickly. You saw me playing Chivalry 2.
Oh, God,
is it worth actually looking into? Like, does all the benefits of the game outweigh the possible frustrations, and could it convert me, or do you think it's maybe You know me. Is it just not my type of game?
I think it's, if you compare something like Bloodborne to on a spectrum with kind of Fallen Order, because it is like, if you can try like Fallen Order is like a very, very light version of that kind of system. I still think it's a bit too far towards the Bloodborne side of the spectrum for you to kind of get the full enjoyment out of. But for 34, 35 pounds, if anybody is on like the fence, I'd say it's a really kind of perfect time to buy it, because I don't see it kind of dropping on the game has legs when it comes to kind of playtime and content creation. So I don't think it's going anywhere. So
I mean, now it's got Game of the Year, and they've announced an expansion in the new in the spring as well. It's got a lot on its way as well.
It's probably going to be the best price at that for a while, I'd say.
Interesting.
Yeah, my thing with Elden Ring is largely just, it's an experience I want to have, but it's not an experience I expect to enjoy, which is why even at the price it currently is on sale, I'm still reluctant. It's like, I want to play the game, but I'm reluctant to drop money into an experience that I completely do not expect to be into.
I mean, I got it because I had Steam credit to use.
Yeah.
Do kind of some hardware purchases. So that's the only reason I kind of took a dive on it.
If I had nothing to play at the moment, I would absolutely buy Elden Ring right now. But I do have other things to play.
I think if The Witcher next gen didn't come out, I would have like a void of like, I could jump into something, and I think Elden Ring's done enough to make me think, you know what, maybe it's good. But then again, at the same time, I've got Dark Souls remake sat there in my PS Plus library, and that had tons of plaudits last year. Full remake, looks gorgeous, launch game for the PS5, and I'm like, is that something I should maybe cut my teeth on to try out? But then Elden Ring, with it's more recent, and it's, again, Game of the Year, it's that tier above Dark Souls. Dark Souls, Demon Souls, which one? Was it Demon Souls? That was the remake, sorry. I think I misspoke there. Demon Souls by Bluepoint did it, right, for the PS5 launch? Either way, I digress. Elden Ring, so yeah, we'll see on that one. What about you, Richie? What standout ones would you have?
I want to briefly talk about Pokemon, because I'm now playing just in general, I'm now playing my second Pokemon game of the year, and I loved both of them.
Ooh.
However, I will say straight away, Violet, I'm playing Violet and Scarlet have quite a few problems beyond just, for me, beyond just like the technical stuff of the bugs and glitches and stuff. I think the level scaling I hate always on XP share. But it also, I think, breaks the game, because my party, I'm not even halfway through collecting it, doing like all the different missions, because you have your typical gym badges, but then you've got other stuff to do as well. I'm not even halfway through, and my Pokemon are already in like level 60s, like, which means that most fights are just one hit.
So like all the challenge is gone, basically.
There's no challenge at all left in the game, which is kind of like breaks it. It's still more Pokemon, and I think more Pokemon's always going to be welcome in my eyes. So it's the IP that's carrying it rather than the quality of the game. Legend Arceus, though, was something a bit different. It has technical issues as well, but most of them were things like just limitations of the Switch, like draw distance was absolutely garbage for a game that is very much more about collecting Pokemon. You don't have your gym battles. The way it kind of works is the story is you are traveled back in time and you are working to create the first ever Pokedex. So you're exploring the world, you're capturing Pokemon, but different Pokemon have like different, like almost like achievements again. So to complete the Pokedex, you have to complete the achievements for all the different Pokemon. And I found myself as a collectathon, if you're into like collectathon stuff, Chris, I think you would love Arceus, because you kind of like that kind of like bit grindy collectathon, just like exploring the world, and it is that kind of like almost brain dead game a bit, where you don't have to like fully focus on it. You can like, kind of half-assed and just slowly tick through the challenges. But I had a great time with Arceus.
Yeah, I think I ignored Arceus, because what was the Pokemon game that came out last Christmas? Just before it was it?
That was Diamond and Diamond.
So I played that in December, and then again,
they were not very good. They were very slow paced.
I mean, I enjoyed them, but I'd never played the originals. And again, I'm similar to you. My Switch is essentially just my Pokemon machine. So when it comes to like playing it, it's almost every time I get like that itch of Pokemon, I go play it and then I bounce out. So like Arceus coming off the back of that, like a month and a half later, I was like, no way am I buying another Pokemon game right this so soon.
They are both Pokemon games, but they are not the same game at all. Like the remake of Diamond and Pearl goes back to the kind of grid style, over the top down. Traditional Pokemon style.
Which, having played Let's Go Pikachu prior to that, was like, that's what I expected and that's what I wanted. So I enjoyed Diamond and Pearl for what it was. But then, is Scarlet and Violet, do they not take some of the perks from Arceus and apply them to
a bit
the next generation?
In terms of the more 3D aspect, like you have more control over the camera. It's not just like top down looking at the map. It plays more like a third person like action RPG. Arceus especially is a bit more action focused,
right?
Because the Pokemon can attack your character, so you do have to occasionally dodge attacks and things.
So if you could only have one of these two Pokemon games for your Pokemon Game of the Year, which would you go for?
Because
you have to wipe one out of existence.
I think
high stakes. Okay.
I think I prefer Violet because it is more of the traditional Pokemon experience than Arceus. However, it has to be Arceus because of the problems that Violet has.
Oh wow, there was a complete pivot there on the way you were going with that one.
Well, yeah, it's just what I like Arceus. I do like the traditional Pokemon format. I do actually. There's a reason these games are so popular.
Mm-hmm.
Like, where I think Arceus, being a spin-off, can like do more with the formula, which is like good. Right. But not if the only one of these could exist. Arceus is the better game, but I think Violet is the one I prefer to exist.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's good for me because, like I said, I skipped on Arceus, but then I've got either Scarlet or Violet in my Christmas stocking this year. I can't remember which one it is, so I'm going to get a surprise this past week, next day, whenever you listen to this. Which again, if it's more traditional Pokemon, that's what I'm looking forward to. Yeah. So that's good to know. And hopefully they'll patch the shit out of it by the time I get around to playing it, probably in the new year sometime.
They are committed to it, but yeah.
Hopefully Richie hasn't erased it from existence.
And that too, that could also happen. Come in like Mewtwo and just like
wipe everything. Thanos snap it or something.
Violet. The main problem with Violet is it's come out 6 months too early, in my opinion. They've tried to hit the traditional release date for Pokemon and it's just not ready.
Yeah, cool. I guess on that top selling list for me, one of the ones I'd like to bring up as well, in amongst all of this, is Stray. I think we mentioned it a little bit at the end of our Talking the PS episode this week, but Stray for me was it's just that game that when we were reflecting at the end of Talking the PS, it was like every time I think of it, I have nothing but like fond memories of it. And like, I'm not a cat person. I'm very much a dog person. So it's not even down to like the animal I'm playing as. There was just something about that game that was different, or it was at the perfect time of the year when I wasn't really committed to anything major. We were between big AAA releases and it was just like fun. I enjoyed it. I thought the world was gorgeous. The puzzle solving was like, it wasn't too complicated, which I guess was what I expected out of it. It told a fun little story and I had a blast with it, and I got the platinum twice in it. That just says how much fun I had. Nice. I did it on PS5 and then me and Richie played it on Cloud, which triggered more trophies, which triggered me to make me want to go, and it gave me an excuse to basically enjoy through it all again with like the benefit trophies at the end of it. And I absolutely adored Stray and I can't wait to see what they do in this world, and I hope it sets like a kind of a new precedence for games that you don't always have to play as a human. Like just so many, we used to have games where you used to play as a bandicoot, a hedgehog, a crocodile, a gecko, Save the Gex,
and all of them humanized.
all of them humanized. But this was like just nice to go back to. Like, yes, a cat would climb up a drain pipe this way. It would jump down from a fence. It would run like this, and I just think it added a different enough lens to view like a different world in, especially because you couldn't communicate really. It's a silent protagonist, but it makes sense because it's a cat. Whereas you would criticize most games.
There, Chris.
Yeah, you would criticize most games for having a silent protagonist in 2022, and yet it just works.
For me, silent protagonist depends on the nature of the game. Like a fully immersive like RPG, like a Skyrim or Fallout, I think a silent protagonist works. Where something like a Witcher, where you are playing the story of this particular character, you do need that more personality, and therefore I think that's why I think Pokemon works as a silent protagonist, because you're you in the game, really.
I mean, everyone's
yeah.
silent in Pokemon because Nintendo still can't afford voice actors apparently for anything.
Yeah.
I think, like, to loop back around to Stray, I think one like the nicest things about talking about this game is just how well every single element of it was executed. Because the actual idea of it, like the concept, it's a cat and you solve puzzles, could have been such a nothing indie game that just never caught any traction. But as you said, like, was it Blue 12? Is it? Who makes
Blue
it?
12.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that sounds right.
So
Yeah.
I think if like they nailed the timing, they nailed like the difficulty kind of level it needed to be, and under another kind of team, like this could have just been.
They built a world.
Yeah.
I think they built a world that really feels lived in, and it's like you as the cat, you feel like you are just passing through it, but in a way, like it feels like there's so much happening behind the scenes. I think it's a very difficult thing to build a world like that where it doesn't feel like a game world. It feels like this is a real place. The characters you meet, these are real people going about their business, and you're only scratching the surface of what these things are.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think, as well, in general, I think it doesn't overstay its welcome. It's not a 40, 50, 60, 70 hour experience. It's 5 hours.
Well,
that's
two if
all
you're
it
going
needs
for that
to be.
trophy.
Yeah.
But it's a very refined like time. There's no like waste in the game.
There's no filler at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't feel like anything in the game is there to pad it out. It's like, this is what we wanted to do with the game. We executed on that. And it doesn't feel like it's making... Like, do you ever feel sometimes games now try to make too many demands on your time? They put things in there. Ubisoft are terrible for this. Put fluff content in there just to expand the game.
Yeah.
They're terrified of you, like, moving on to play something else. Stray's not like that. It just goes, here you go, play this over a weekend, then get on with whatever else you got going on. And I really appreciate that element of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100% agree.
That's kind of what brings me on to really enjoying the Plague Tale games, because one of my other top games of this year was Plague Tale Requiem. Obviously, it was free on Game Pass for a lot of people out there. I played it on PlayStation 5 still because of the trophies, annoyingly. But then, yeah, absolutely love this game. And to what you're saying there, Richie, you've just bought Plague Tale Innocence, I think, on Xbox to play through. And I said it gives you the same qualities I get from like a Naughty Dog game. Like, it's very much heavily influenced by things like The Last of Us and stuff, and you can see that in the way it tells a story. But you're talking maybe like 10 to 15 hours, so you can complete it over like the course of a week with multiple like 3-hour playthrough stints and such. Trophies and aside, they're not like, it's not too arduous to get the platinum trophy. But in terms of like gameplay, is super fun. Characters are phenomenal. The sequel, I think my vote for this year's best character above all the God of War guys and Horizon and stuff was Charlotte McBurney, I think, who does Amicia in the game. She was fantastic. I think she should have won that. Like the way she delivers her lines and her emotion and stuff within the game is second to none this year for me. And I think I love it because it's all the things I love about a third-person story-driven game. But like you said, more condensed. It respects my time. There was very little filler in both of those titles, and I felt like I read the story and it was done. You know, kind of when you go back and watch an older movie, and then you finish it and you check it, and the runtime was like 1 hour 34. Yeah. And you think like, wow, it was just quite refreshing that it was just in and out in what would take it to watch 2 TV episodes nowadays. And I think a lot of movies now, they go through, like, you're talking pushing the 3-hour mark for a lot of big AAA blockbuster movies. Kind of similar to games. It was nice to just be in and out, finish it over the course of maybe like a fortnight, and I was like, oh, that was awesome. I love that. I can't wait for the third one already. And that's why I keep saying back to Richie, I'm like, you will love these, and they won't take away too much from like whatever else you're playing, your Pokemons and stuff at the time.
That's exactly why when it came on sale, Innocence came on sale, I bought it immediately. Where Elden Ring, I'm on the fence on still, because I expect to really enjoy Plague Tale. But,
and then I guess the big one we all need to get to.
Yeah, I think we've got time for one more, Rob. If there's anything you want to give a shout out to before we get into the obvious thing that we haven't talked about yet,
and that you haven't played yet.
Yeah.
No, I think all of the games I've been consumed with this year have been past titles, like kind of last year's games, which I've only just actually got round to playing. So I'll hand you guys over for God of War in that case.
Yeah, well, I'm actually going to extend the same to you, Chris. Let's kind of do an honourable shout out to games that you've discovered for the first time this year, or with something like that. It doesn't necessarily, or that if you just, it's a game maybe it's come out this year that you don't think is going to realistically be in one of our game of the years, but you just want to give a shout out to.
Probably High on Life on Xbox. I think just it's one of those things. We only played it like 2 weeks ago, and it's getting obviously loads of love. We spoke about it on this week's XPass, but just it's one of those games. Like I think I said, it's like a comedy where like an episode of Rick and Morty where I've had this itch all week to just go back to it, maybe play it for another hour or so, just to see what the gun gets up to, what the characters get up to, what's happening in that world, and obviously it's not up there in like Game of the Year conversation at all, but it's something that's different that's came up this year. Again, like straight an indie developer, like Plague Tale, a small independent studio, absolute quality coming out of video games this year. So yeah, shout out to High on Life for me.
Yeah, the only really one I want to give a shout out to that we haven't already touched on for me is actually I'm going to mention Chained Echoes. I've only played literally what is on our first look on the channel. I haven't played any more, but it did grip me in a way that I wasn't necessarily like expecting. And Trails of Cold Steel, an old game, admittedly, but I played it for the first time this year, and it is my most played game this year. So I almost feel wrong to not mention it in this episode.
Yeah, I feel like I should mention Age of Empires 4. Despite it being kind of last year, it is a game that's consumed a hell of a lot of my time this year. Yeah. So, honourable mention to Age of Empires 4.
Yeah, so God of War. We've got a little bit of time to talk about it. I'm going to straight up say this is my game of the year. I think God of War is the best game that I've played this year.
I'd echo that straight away. Just again, we're probably going to do a spoiler cast version of CloudQuest where we're going to go, so we don't need to break down.
It might not be branded CloudQuest. It might just be.
We'll see what it is. Yeah, just a spoiler cast. But yeah, in terms of just everything we've echoed on multiple shows and while we've been playing it over the last few weeks, it's just, for me, it was gameplay, top quality. Like that, every time that axe comes back, it's like, oh, that's satisfying. Yeah. It's all hell. The world just expanding. Again, it's kind of what we said Horizon didn't do, which was expand on the original reboot game in every regard, like the traveling through the world and the characters and your companions. I just feel like all of them stepped up. The voice acting, absolutely outstanding. Like some of the emotion and stuff they were able to convey in this game, like had me close to tears at certain moments several times. And it's a video game, god damn it. Yeah,
there was a few points where I did think I was welling up. Like, and Kratos, despite him being a very stoic character, and it can be quite difficult, I think, at times to show character development of that sort of character. He is not the same man at this end of the game as he was at the beginning of the game. And bear in mind, this is the second game of the Norse, like, duopoly, like, duology or whatever you want to call it. So it could have just been like, okay, Kratos' arc's done, now this is going to be just a Kratos' arc. But Kratos, every character actually goes through, I can't think of a single character, perhaps Odin, who doesn't actually go through as, like, have a decent arc throughout the games, but I think Odin's thing is he's Odin. He doesn't really need to. He's the villain of the piece.
Yeah, he's got to be a dick the whole time. But yeah, I just think it just does everything you want out of a third-person action-adventure game. It does it. It's got the story. It's got, like, even the music. Like, Bear McCreary, shout out to that guy, won an award for Best Score at the Game Awards as well. There's a reason for it. He just had a stellar year. And, the score, the orchestral music that comes in, it just all adds to the emotion and stuff, and it's played out. And again, shout out to the one shot. Cory Barlog on the first reboot game decided to, like, this whole game is just going to be over the shoulder. We're never going to cut away from our characters. And they do some clever things in Ragnarok to kind of, like, circumnavigate that a little bit. But all in all, the fact that from the beginning of this, like, the opening scene,
of match cuts,
to the end, is like you are stuck with these characters right from the get go, and fantastic, absolutely. It kind of epitomizes what the perfect video game is for me, and that's why it does it. And I hope we're not setting this too high for Rob to, like, be knocked down where he's like finishes and goes, it was all right, but these two on about.
Is there an RTS element to it? Because I'll read.
Well, okay, let's talk a few flaws just to bring it back down to earth. I don't think the Blades of Chaos were that great, to be honest. compared to the axe and how it feels to use the axe, the Blades of Chaos just didn't have that same feel in your hands when the controller for me.
Yeah.
So they felt a little bit lackluster, so it became more of just very utilitarian when I used them rather than an awesome thing to
Whenever
play
there's
with.
an ice enemy, it's like, oh,
Yeah,
the fire weapon out.
I'd switch to them when when there's a specific enemy like with an ice shield to break through that shield, or if I want to do like massive damage and want to just use my specials, then I'd switch back to the axe.
But that's just because the axe is so good. I feel like if the game didn't have the axe and you just had the blades, that I feel like that would just be the standard. But because the axe is so satisfying, especially with the dual sense, it has
just
those
felt
extra
like
little haptic elements. It's like you feel like Thor with Mjolnir. Like even though he's the enemy in this one, there is just something about it which is like
I mean that's how nitpicky we're getting here. I felt like just like they could have done a bit more with the dual sense and the Blades of Chaos.
Yeah, it might be in a patch.
I think in the last God of War I felt the same, but ultimately like, you're using the DualShock 4 at that time, so I was like, it felt like they could have done something there.
Yeah. For me, I think the fast travel could be improved. There was a few times going around later in the game, like going retracing your steps, where it was kind of like, why do I have to go traverse through these small crevices and cracks and climb up here just to get to a checkpoint to get back somewhere? I feel like that was a bit tedious.
There's a few things that because it does have a bit of a Metroidvania-esque style to it, things where you'll discover something very early on in the game. I remember there's like this kind of like the weird like steam vent things. Mm-hmm. You see, like you counted loads of them like pretty much early hours of the game, and it's really quite late in the game when you can actually.
It is, yeah, but they do tell you companions do go like, oh, we can't use that yet. Never mind, and you're like, damn, I have to come
companions. Back they need to learn to shut the fuck up at times.
Whoa.
I don't mean the banter in the story. Mamiya's storytelling is on point as always. I mean when you're trying to solve a puzzle, they don't shut up. And it can be, I found it a bit spoilery, unfortunately, at times.
You can reduce that now, though, I feel like.
Not enough. It needs an option to just switch off. If you do not want any sort of hints, you should be able to have no hints.
No hints? Noted.
Yeah, but we're talking, again, we're nitpicking, so...
Yeah, I can't think of anything really else that I would want to say. But yeah, that is my game of the year. Again, haven't played Elden Ring yet. But that is my definitive, and I always kind of went into the year expecting it to be, and when it started coming out with all like the reviews saying it was like 10 out of 10 masterpiece from everywhere, that was like, yeah, okay, it's just cemented it. And then when I played it, it was like, hey, everyone was right. Yes, God of War Ragnarok, game of year.
Agreed. Rob,
I'm gonna go with Stray. I wasn't going to at the start of this recording. I was going to advocate for Elden Ring, but the more we talked about Stray, the more kind of flipped it for me. Enjoyed the game more than Elden Ring, and the origins of it I think is the thing that kind of deserves the most praise, and like the work the team did. The resources that somewhere like kind of From Software or like kind of Sony have behind them is they should be making Game of the Year games, but no one would expect it from an indie studio, so that's my argument for Stray.
Yeah, I think we can probably agree. God of War is our channel's game of the year.
Yeah, I think once we pick up with Rob in the new year, once he's finished it, we can like definitively say. But I don't know. It depends if those companions talk and just pisses Rob that much off. He's like, after 2 hours, I was like, I'm done. They wouldn't shut up.
I mean, yeah, Richie seems to hate them, so.
It's just the spoiler nature of it when you're trying to solve a puzzle, and sometimes it can be quite aggressive. It's not like if you stood there for 10 minutes trying to solve it out. It sometimes is like 30 seconds and they're telling you what to do.
Yeah, and when he says aggressive, he doesn't mean like High on Life aggressive, where you're hey,
I mean
fuck
like,
you, idiot. There's a fucking puzzle there. Just climb up, you dipshit. Like it
doesn't give you long enough to actually sometimes even just take in your surroundings.
Yeah, so it's not like Metal Gear Solid 1 where like Campbell calls you after half an hour of not figuring out how to crouch.
No. It's just one of them. I think by default it's way too frequent, and it needs an option to just have it switched off entirely. Because although it's not a puzzle game, solving these puzzles I think is part of the gameplay. It is one of them things that changes up the gameplay. But yeah, I think that's all we have, unless there's anything else you want to give a shout out to.
Chivalry 2. I've never seen a game wind Chris up so much than Chivalry 2.
Oh, you need to watch our Monster Boy playthrough on the channel then.
Oh, yeah.
Because that is, again, when we say about next year and plans to play like more variations of games and dabble in some stuff, like I want to sit down and watch you or Richie play like a really frustrating game just so I can enjoy in the pain and suffering a little bit more. Because I think a lot of our live streams, it's often been me on the sticks just by nature of how we set up our streams. And I think for 2023, I would love to just be an observer as we play a horror game and watch Richie jump scare all the time, or you play a frustrating game and watch your anger be taken out on your own controller rather than mine. But yes, God of War Ragnarok.
Interesting you say that, Chris. I'm planning for next week's CloudQuest to be the games we're excited for in 2023, so I might find something out of that.
Well, there we go.
Part of a duopoly of episodes, really, of CloudQuest.
You said this twice now. Duopoly. Is that a word?
Is that
I
a
don't
new
know.
word, Richie? Is that
I don't know.
I like it.
It sounds like a good word. I don't know if it's the right word. It sounds right. But that's all we have time for this week. If you like the video, hit that like button and consider becoming a member for as little as 99p. We can get early access to this show, to talking to PS and some other stuff we do. Occasionally, first looks go earlier to members. If you've got a topic you want us to discuss, let us know in the comments of the video or in our Discord server, and let us know what your game of the year is. What's the best game that you've played this year in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Richie.
I've been Chris.
And I've been Rob.
Quest completed.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.